Hey there, Caleb Christensen with the Unlimited Leads podcast on location here at Warplan Studios in Denton, Texas. I keep wanting to say Dallas, but it's not Dallas. It is Denton, okay? Outside of Dallas with Joshua Latimer and the Warplan team. Joshua is a multi-seven-figure entrepreneur with a emphasis and focus on local mom and pop, the service-based businesses, correct?
Yeah, that's where we started. Those are the people we help. I mean, we have an eclectic background now, but that's where it all started.
Okay.
Brick and mortar, boots on the ground, local business.
Awesome. And more than anything, you've really been a student of marketing and sales over these years. And now you coach business owners and entrepreneurs how to make more money, be more efficient. You call them money levers. You do a lot of cool things here. But what I want to talk about today is affluent lead generation. I speak with so many prospects, leads, clients, and everyone has the same need. They need qualified leads and appointments on their calendar on a consistent basis to fill their pipelines and build their book of business. So in everything that you've done and everything that you've learned and working with hundreds, if not thousands of business owners, what are some of the top bits of advice you can give to a business owner who's getting involved in the marketing game, who wants to attract affluent leads into their business?
There's lots of nuggets. First of all, I probably spend about less than a third of my time coaching. Not that that's bad. I just want to make it clear, we're building real companies and actually doing this. We built and sold 4 different businesses, from software companies, coaching companies, but also brick and mortar local businesses. And I've just learned a lot. So when it comes to like affluent marketing, the number one problem I see is that people don't understand that they're not their customer. My wife and I went to a Dan Kennedy event here in Dallas a couple weeks ago. And right when you walked into the lobby, there's this huge sign that said, "Don't change your product, change your customer," right? Like, go upstream. But like, if you grew up poor like we did, or you grew up with not a lot, it's actually really hard to even comprehend what an affluent person even thinks like, because you don't know, because you aren't that thing. Or we grew up so broke that I can't even think, until I was almost 18 years old, I didn't even know someone that was rich in real life, And the guy that I ended up getting mentored by first was the first rich guy I kind of knew personally, but he wasn't even rich. He owned one Domino's pizza franchise, but he was like killing it. He had a red Corvette. I remember just being like, what? And
the money's in the breadsticks, really.
Yeah. What's funny is he had to turn his Corvette back into the bank after cheese prices went up. Because believe it or not, like in the pizza business, that was a major deal. And like, because they're a franchise, he couldn't adjust his prices whenever he wanted. They were set by the franchise. Anyway, the point is that like wealthy, affluent people are fundamentally different than everybody else. And if you aren't one of those already, you don't understand that, and it messes up your marketing. It messes up your marketing. So marketing to the affluent, it's a big topic. It makes everything easier. There can be challenges, but generally speaking, the problem customers we all have come from lower ticket buyers. They come from people who have a poorer mindset. They expect more, they demand more, they're more needy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you've seen this in your own business, right?
Countless
If
times.
someone pays me $100,000 for private consulting, they say please and thank you. They're more flexible. They're generous. They're like very generous with their time, with their testimonial, with their referrals, with their network, everything. It's just a totally different relationship. But part of the reason is because the $100,000 they give me represents a little piece of their total net worth. Whereas if you sell a $1,000 course or a $1,000 product to someone that only has $2,000 to their name, that's 50% of what they're worth they just spent on that, right? So their expectations are different. Their whole frame of reference is different.
If you are someone who comes from meager means and you're looking at your bank account going, man, I started a business to level up, to go to that next level, but you're not there yet. But you realize to get to that next level, you need those higher end clients, you need those higher end contracts, and you want to be having those high value conversations, those at bats that can turn into business. How do you fundamentally change your mindset so that you're not pricing your offers, pricing your services, pricing your advising fees, whatever type of business you're in? How do you not price it based on your comfort level, your wallet? How do you break that mindset? Because that can be that could be very damaging and limiting.
Yeah, it makes things really hard. Like, we grew up blue collar, so dollars were always associated with hours. You know, you do so much labor for an hour and you get so many dollars. And like, doctors get lots of dollars per hour. And, you know, ditch diggers get little bits of dollars per every hour. But everything's coupled to time. But
Unless you're in California where I live, but that's another conversation.
meaning they just get paid a lot no matter what.
Yeah, they're union, you know, and like, that guy's got a good job.
Yeah, I think it comes down for the first step is to understand what value is. Value is a subjective moving target of a thing. So when you price certain things on a per hour basis, you're basically arbitrarily attaching a value to it, which is fine for accounting purposes and just to wrap your head around it. But when it comes to the services that you have or what it is that you actually do for people, the value changes based on who you're doing it for. Okay. So for example, if you have a low income 70-year-old man who you can do a hair transplant for, the value to him is different than it would be to a 29-year-old man who is an attorney that makes $500,000 a year. Meaning you could perform the same services and give hair to a 70-year-old guy for the same amount of hours, the same amount of cost of goods sold. It costs a certain amount for antiseptic and whatever equipment you use to do that. There's a hard cost to it. But the value to each of them respectively is totally different, right? Like, this guy doesn't care that much. He's like, you know, I've been married 50 years. I don't need this. It's a nice to have. But the 29-year-old, you know, maybe his whole self-identity is wrapped up in it. So when you understand that, you got to understand one way to create more value is simply to change who you're selling your stuff to in the first place, because it's perceived different. It's received different. Another way to create more value without working more hours is just to niche down on who you do your thing for. So who here would want to go to a general practitioner versus, you know, if you had a tumor on your elbow, okay, and you go to your family doctor, that's fine. You got to start somewhere. However, what if you got a flyer or a piece of direct mail, or you saw an ad for the elbow tumor specialist, right? And so if it's the elbow tumor guy that I'm going to see, I fully expect that it costs more because the value created is higher. Even if the advice that he gives me would have matched my general practice doctor, like, oh yeah, just like massage it and ice it and it will be fine. It's still worth more because of the perception of its nicheness, its specificity to me. So with our marketing and our messaging, if we get really niched and focused, sometimes we can make a lot more money. You know, going small could be going big, if that makes sense. Getting specific, understanding value subjective, and trying to uncouple your value as a person, uncouple that from the result that you have for sale. Because just because it takes you 3 hours to do something, that doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is the result that is given to the client and how much they think it's worth.
Let's talk about this elbow tumor, because as a trained nurse, I don't know if I've ever seen an elbow tumor. So I understand the analogy. I think it's great. You know, working in hospitals for the last 15 years, I've never met an elbow tumor specialist, but when I do, I'll be like,
right.
Can I do your marketing? Because man, the elbow tumor niche.
Well, even this podcast itself, if this podcast was titled, you know, Affluent Marketing Strategies that Handicapped Redheaded Golfers Can Use. Like, that's very weird, and you might only have 13 listeners worldwide. However, the per person value extracted is really big because we're speaking to that exact person, right, about a very specific problem. So, you know, specialization always creates more money, which is why brain surgeons make more than general practitioners, et cetera, et cetera. So, but in a lot of cases, if it's a professional service or you're a local business, you can just demand higher prices by switching who you attract, who you sell to. But that requires you to reframe all of your messaging. You know, there's a saying in marketing, how you get them is how you got to keep them. And what that means is if you're getting most of your customers through Groupons, you got to retain the customers through like Groupons, through deep discounts, which is bad. You know, or if you think of maybe a girl in high school that has low self-esteem, She's got daddy issues. And so she wants to get the attention of boys. She may dress a particular way, which is maybe not a good idea, but I get it. And she does this, not understanding that how you get them is how you got to keep them. You know, if you attract a man because of just your body, you better not let your body go, right? It's not a real, if the relationship starts out in this certain place with this certain frame of reference. It's like that with marketing. So if it's buy one, get one, if it's 50% off, if it's constantly free, then you're going to lose those customers later when you try to raise your prices or try to reposition yourself as a premium thing.
Can I pause you on that?
Sure.
So the niche that this podcast is really designed to serve is appointment-based businesses, and specifically financial advisors and high-end home services. And so how can, let's just use financial advisors as an example. A lot of times the pricing of their products and services is not really controlled by them. You know, it's controlled by the insurance or the different annuity plans. Maybe there's some flexibility in what they offer their clients, etc., but they're not really, essentially every advisor is selling the same thing. We'll just use that as an example. How can that type of individual niche themselves down to a specific ideal client so that even though that they are an advisor that is selling something other advisors could sell just the same, how can they carve out a piece of the market so that they are seen as the expert? They're seen as the go-to provider for, let's say, Roth conversions or something like that.
It's going to be by specifying your avatar deeper, but people are scared to do this because they feel like, well, yeah, but if I say I'm only going to work with, executives or CEOs of this age or this age, well, then no one else will do business with me and I won't get enough money and I'll run out of money. And it's your fear that actually keeps you from getting the money. Actually, Dan Kennedy told a story about a financial advisor who is broke, just like most of them are, by the way, unfortunately. It's like you love spreadsheets and math, but you're selling a commodity that lots of people can sell, and you're trying to manage people's money, but you don't even know how to make money. This is a problem. One of the ways to solve the problem is to get really specific on the only people you're messaging to. And so in this case, Dan was talking about a guy who would only do financial advising stuff for people who had exited a business for $30 million or more, which is a pretty small pool, it seems like, but it's actually a pretty big pool. It's bigger than you think. And because he pigeonholed himself in that specific thing, a couple things happened. Number one is all of his messaging, all of his marketing, everything about who he was and how he framed stuff, how he talked about stuff was only speaking to this one situation. And number two, every client he did get had lots of money to invest, right? So one client equals 1,000 clients, right? And so doing that, but you got to go all the way with it, right? You got to go all the way with it. So if it was me, my whole office would be themed around my avatar, around the niche, around the thing. Because the real game is just building trust with people. When you're selling a commodity, the competitive advantage that you have is relationship. And the relationship that you have is based on trust. And the trust that you have is based on how well your prospect feels understood by you. And if it's just you're a nice person in general and you're kind of nice to everybody, that's not as good as I'm the guy that helps people that just exited $30 million businesses do this certain thing. And to build trust with you, I'm going to describe what it's like to be you. You're probably thinking this. You can't sleep at night because of that. Here's the implication of that. You thought you would feel like this because of the exit, but you actually feel like this. And getting deep into the psychology and the brain of that person you're serving, theming your office around it, theming the way you dress around it, making your content about it. What happens is the one out of 10,000 people that hear that message, it's magnetic to them. It's like an absolute magnet. Why would they even consider scheduling an appointment with a different advisor when you're the guy for that exact thing? You're in their head. You're speaking their thoughts out loud back to them. They're going to get on your calendar. They're going to have trust. They're going to do business. And you're going to win.
A lot to unpack there. What's a good way? Okay, so an advisor hears that advice, or really any business owner, but we're using this advisor as an example. They hear that advice, like, where do you even start? Like, I don't even know who my ideal client is. I don't know what niche to pick. I can do everything for everyone. Like, where do I even start? Do you have any good starting place for someone who is ready to niche down, who's ready to pick a mountain to defend and become the king of, where do you start?
I think there's different ways to do it. Number one is it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can continue to do what you're doing to get the results that you're getting. And in conjunction with that, you can run some ads or test some messaging targeting a specific avatar and just see what happens. You could do that. You can do more than one of those at the same time. What's going to happen is you're going to get some clues. You know, they say that success leaves clues. So as you get a couple wins, even if it takes you 3 months or 6 months or 9 months of dialing your messaging, the value of you figuring this out is like gigantic. I heard a quote that said that one good idea properly exploited is worth more than 10 lifetimes of hard work. So people quit the band right before they get the record deal. So keep doing what you're doing, but start going on treasure hunts and trying to figure it out. Another thing you can do is look at your book of business that you already have, and probably within 5 seconds, your top 1 or 2 or 3 clients pop into your brain. The people that don't complain, that give you their money, that say please and thank you, give you referrals, they leave you reviews. These are like pleasant people. Try to figure out if there's any through lines in common with them, you know, like a string that links them all together. What's specific about these people? Did they just retire when you did business with them? Are they a certain age range? Are they a certain religious type or something? Like, who can you target? Who can you build relationships with that you seem to vibe with the most, that are the most profitable for you? And we just gradually over time tighten our messaging to getting specifically focused on that. It's not like you have to, you know, quit what you're doing and just run ads in fancy rich people magazines and hope that someone hires you. No, that would be crazy. But we have to begin to think like this, and we have to start testing things, because everybody watching this podcast has the earning potential of a professional athlete, but they don't act like it. They don't take this stuff serious, because the truth is most people don't care. They don't want it. They think that they want it. They'll say that they want it, but their behavior does not line up with that desire, you know, because desire alone, being like, I want to be rich, I want to be successful, that doesn't like matter. You know, if I survey 100 people, who wants $10 million? Everybody's hands go up. And I say, keep your hand up if you have $10 million. Everybody's hands go down, right? Why? Well, because desire alone isn't enough. You know, if there's not some other mission or purpose or driver. Elon Musk called starting a business eating broken glass while staring into the abyss. Why would someone do that? Well, because there's something else pulling them. So
that's a great quote.
Yeah, but if you have that calling, not just for financial success, but there's some reason that's just compelling you. If you have that, you're going to be fine. But you got to test. And you have to do it for a sufficient period of time. And you will figure out what works. And when you properly exploit it, you're going to make a fortune. Everyone else is going to think you got lucky.
So true. So we're sitting here in your content production studio, which you've so graciously hosted me for today. So many clients I work with, they're afraid to sit in front of a camera. They're afraid to produce content. They're afraid to do a Facebook Live. They're just afraid to do anything. And so what their quote unquote social media presence is a static Facebook page that was set up in 2019, a dry 3-page website with a contact us form.
Right.
And that is their whole online marketing. And what we do is we come in, we help them rebrand, you know, refresh their Facebook page, get ads going, create what I call a millionaire magnet, which is not just a lead magnet, but a lead magnet designed to attract an affluent niche. And it's almost like magic. We turn this stuff on and they start to get all these new leads and opportunities. It's like, oh, wow. So my question is, as someone who is very deep in the organic content production game, if you will, like, what are some simple things without all this cool stuff on a budget where any small business owner, financial advisor, even home services can start producing content that attracts these affluent individuals?
Well, rule number 1 is actually make something, right? Like
Step one.
Something existing is like such a huge win compared to nothing existing. The other thing is don't overthink it. You know, I think high production value stuff and getting fancy with it actually works against you in a lot of ways. You know, there's specific reasons we'll do fancy multi-camera stuff, but if you're a local business advisor or professional, it's really mostly about just connection and being real. And you can do a lot with an iPhone to build trust and connection. But I think the biggest rule, without getting into tactics and tips and tricks, is consistency. I'm a very busy person, and I've committed to my team a long time ago. We're just going to keep making stuff. And we don't have a huge following. I'm not a social media following expert, but we don't stop doing it. And the people that I'm talking to, I have a rule that I'll share when I am making content that helps. But that's it, consistency, and then following this framework. So when you are making a video, the reason you're nervous is because you're making it all about you. If you're genuinely trying to help someone who desperately needs help, you shouldn't feel nervous. You should feel excited to help that person. Like, would you feel nervous to rescue someone who's drowning? Because, what if I look weird? What if I bend over, my butt crack pops out? What is the crowd going to think? Is that even a thought in your head? No, you're like, oh my God, and you save the person, right? So it's a reframe of understanding that you are on a rescue mission to serve the people God called you to serve. And then when you're making a video, number one, you got to remember in your brain, you're talking to one person, and it's someone that you deeply care about, and they desperately need to hear what you have to say. And assuming those three things were true, you would talk to the camera different. It wouldn't be the same. People go online and they're like, hey guys, just wait for a few more people to hop on. Like, don't just abandon all that stuff. You're talking to one person who you deeply care about, who desperately needs to hear what you have to say. And everybody watching this has tremendous value that they're providing in the world. Most people grossly underestimate the individual amount of value they already are contributing. And they show up on camera like, well, yeah, I can probably help you. Like, I'm pretty good. Like, I got my license. I'm certified. It's like, there's no certainty. There's no conviction. There's no passion. There's no enthusiasm, because you're not on a rescue mission. You're trying to make a few bucks, and people can feel that. If you can switch it to where you're on a rescue mission to help a specific type of person get a specific type of result, even if you have a tiny following, it becomes magnetic, opportunities open up, and everything can change.
The government is trying to steal your retirement, and you must watch this webinar unless you want Uncle Sam to win.
It could be true. I mean, that stuff works from a marketing perspective, but
I'm just talking about that conviction of, like, a lot of the financial advisors I work with, they're trying to help business owners save money on their taxes. Like, the government is literally stealing your money, and they have the vehicles and they have the tools that can minimize that. Get on camera and share your message, share what you're able to do.
I think it's our moral obligation to not give the government more money than we legally have to, because they do a really bad job managing it.
They do.
Right? The government doesn't have an income problem, they have a spending problem. But that's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But it's about conviction, it's about being on a movement, not making it about you, consistently playing the long game. People will plug into that. People will get behind that. You just gotta keep showing up.
Let's talk about lead magnets. In my program, in my coaching, we talk about creating the millionaire magnet. It's basically an ethical bribe where your ideal client would happily give you their contact information, or even a small amount if you're charging for an ebook or something, for this valuable resource. What are some tools, techniques, strategies you've learned for creating not only lead magnets, but the right type of lead magnets to fill your funnels, to help your clients generate leads?
I mean, if you're attracting affluent people, the number one value for most affluent people is their time. That's the most important thing to them. Wealthy people spend a whole bunch of their money to buy back some of their time, right? Poor people give away all of their time for a little bit of money. I mean, it's a fundamentally different thing. It's a different frame, So I feel like the lead magnet needs to specifically, it should probably be brief and be clear, and it should have some sort of payoff or result. A lot of affluent people, depending on what market we're talking about, they're bottom line people. Like, get me to the point, like, nutshell it for me. What's the thing? What's the twist? What's the thing? What's different about you? How does it work? What's my payoff, right? And a lot of people just blab on about useless nonsense that people that are wealthy don't care about, specifically and especially don't care about. They just want to understand what's it worth, because rich people, they understand there's two sides to the ledger. There's what you give, and there's what you get. Poor people only focus on what they have to give, Wealthy people are very fixated on what they get, what's something worth. Does that make sense? So how can you quantify the problem you can solve for them? How can you quantify how much that is worth to them quickly in a way that saves them time, in a way that's clear, that's dog whistling to them and is personalized to them? How do you do that? There's lots of ways. There can be checklists and PDFs or a short video, or there could be a spreadsheet or a template or a calculator. There's lots of things that could be a lead magnet. It could be an in-person thing. It could be a 30-minute thing. It could be a 15-minute strategy call. It could be lots of things. You have to test it depending on your industry. But the principle embedded in it should be it saves them time, it quantifies a big result, and it's dog whistling specifically to their situation.
I know I use the word dog whistle a lot. I learned it from Dan Kennedy. How would you describe dog whistling in this?
Sure. Well, dog whistle is a phrase or a piece of language that only certain people really hear. You know, just like a dog can only hear a dog whistle, humans can't hear it. Certain language is like, what? What was that? Did you hear that? Exactly. Wealthy people will go, huh? Right? And poor people will go, huh? Right? So identifying what that is, it depends on who you're talking to, but using time-based value propositions, right? Playing into people's status a little bit more could be a dog whistle. There's groups of people that don't care about what they've accomplished because they haven't accomplished anything. So if you're using language about, you're an accomplished professional who's ready to live their best years now or something, no one even hears that except the person who considers themselves an accomplished professional. It becomes invisible to the wrong person and loud to the right person, if that makes sense. And so that's why words are containers of energy. That's what they are. And some words just are invisible to people, and some words are very loud to people. So getting specific on your messaging is really important. If you're like financial advising services for great people looking for great service, what that's called is white noise. White noise, no one hears it because it's so similar to everything that it means nothing. There's no dog whistling to anybody. That's why you want to test the edges, be a little intentionally polarizing, throw a few rocks, use more loaded words, and you start testing stuff, right? And there's compliance issues if you're a business professional and yada, yada, yada. But you can play within those rules, but still test the edges, to find the sweet spot.
Yeah, Russell Brunson calls it testing hooks. Just seeing what lands, seeing what people respond to. And what are some ways that you have tested different hooks that you've... Well, actually, at lunch today, we were talking about how your current software business came out of a Facebook post, which turned into a Facebook group, which turned into an offer, which is now kind of gone, it's evolved over time. You want to just briefly share that story? And for me, when I was listening to it, it was kind of a case study of surveying and testing the market, seeing what people were responding to, and then building out your messaging based on that positive feedback, and then doing that process over and over again.
That's exactly right. That was what my answer was going to be. Is the best ways to test hooks is to repeat back to your customers what they said to you. Or when you're talking to your customers, you're testing a phrase or an acronym. You're testing some sort of cool hook or a sentence. And you can see if something hits someone, if they can feel it, right? I have lots of proprietary language I use in my community where my people feel very understood, right? And the war plan movement, which is our world, it's called war plan. They understand what FOPO is, what a money lever is, what asymmetrical marketing is, and a myriad of other things, right? So there's like little phrases and isms and things. For us, we sell a program to local business owners that have an actual local business, but they want to make more leveraged money being a coach to other local businesses like them. And one of the phrases that we use a lot in our messaging is the phrase picking your brain. Because for someone who's maybe doing $1 million in their local business, they're successful, they're respectable, they've got a lot of battle wounds and scars, they've learned a lot of lessons. Their knowledge is worth a lot to someone doing what they're doing who's stuck at $300,000 a year, right? And so what happens is people like to pick their brain. But it reaches a point where it gets annoying because people are picking your brain and then they're not doing what the advice you told them to do, and it gets frustrating. And then they're like, well, should I charge money for this? Or like, how does this work? And they don't know what to do. And so we want a dog whistle to that person. And when we use the phrase, are you tired of people picking your brain and then not taking action? Is your wife mad at you because you're on the phone in the garage helping people for free all weekend, right? That type of stuff, when we say it, is a huge dog whistle. And people are like, what did he say? Right? And they hear it. It hits. So now, how did I find that out? Well, it's from actually talking to real people and describing the same thing in new ways, in different ways. And then you can see their facial expression change or see it light up.
And this started with just a simple Facebook post. What was the evolution of this?
Yeah, War Plan was originally just me teaching really, really good, really clever marketing ideas to local business owners for free in a Facebook group. So I made a big post saying, hey, I'm going to teach all this stuff because I built and sold these companies. I've learned a lot of weird things because I have 1 foot in software in the online digital marketing world and 1 foot over here. And there's a lot of things I can learn over here that just radically disrupt things for the better over here. Anyway, so I just started teaching them for free, right? Because adding value, it's hard for you to lose in the long run. After I was done doing that, it helped me find my voice on how I was articulating some of the ideas, getting feedback, doing little groups. And so from there, I did make an offer that was paid. And then I worked with like 66 people that bought a $5,000 offer for 6 months. And I spent 4 hours a week with this group of people for 6 months. So it was like 2 hours on Monday night, 2 hours on Wednesday night. I can't remember which days it was because it was over a year ago, but it was like, I think it was Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday. And we just became like best friends. And because all business is just solving problems for people. What better way to understand what problems you're solving than just serving and bending over backwards and building a relationship with your perfect customer? So these group of people, they paid to be there. But the real value for me wasn't the dollars. It was the understanding I got on what problems they had, how to solve it, what solutions I had that solved it the easiest and the fastest and the biggest result. And then on the back end, I'm compiling all this, right? So this progression turned into a software product with very razor sharp messaging and ultimately something that works unbelievably well because it was so perfectly formed for that type of business, if that makes sense, right? I just don't think people are more transactional and they make less money because of it. If you play the long game and you understand your customers better, you'll make orders of magnitude more money. But I maybe could have made a little more money on the front end if I was just selling a half-baked thing. Instead, I made it quiet. I sold a small amount of them. I over-delivered and worked hard with them. Sold them another thing, the same group of people. Over-delivered, went even deeper. And now what we're wound up with is something that will do 9 figures.
I love that juxtaposition of being relational as opposed to transactional. A lot of the individuals I've worked with, we create a marketing campaign. They start to get leads. Their email list, they've never had an email list. All of a sudden they have an email list. And
they're like, what do I do?
What do I do? I go, email them, call them, build a relationship.
Become best friends.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, when do I get paid? I'm running out of money. I'm like,
it's a success principle. Amateurs focus on the front end. Professionals focus on the
back end.
The back end, right? It's short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. This is not new, people, right? The marshmallow experiment. You're familiar with that? You give a kid put a marshmallow in front of a kid and you tell him, if you don't eat this, I'm going to leave the room. And when I come back, if you don't eat this, I'm going to give you a second marshmallow. Okay. It's your choice. You can eat it, but you don't get anything else. If you don't eat it, I'm going to double your marshmallow. The adult leaves the room, comes back in 10 minutes later. Something like 75 or 85% of the kids eat the marshmallow. That's why the income distribution is the way that it is. There's no conspiracy. No one's holding you down. You're holding you down because you're a statistic. You're part of a bell curve. Why does wealth accumulate in the hands of the few? There's lots of reasons. One of the big ones is that most people disqualify themselves because it's really not that hard, but they think it is and they talk themselves out of it and I'm not worthy. And so they just kind of remove themselves from the race at all. And then there's various other simple reasons. But if you play the long game and think long term, you add real value and you enthusiastically and passionately talk about that and never stop and shutting up about that, it's really hard to be poor. It's like impossible. Okay? It's really, really, really hard, especially over a long enough time horizon. That's it. That's the whole thing. People just aren't willing to do it.
So we'll wrap up this interview. But before we do, we're wearing matching hats and matching shirts.
Do hard things.
Do hard things, all right? Slay like David. you know. I'm more of a backwards hat kind of guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, but so I'm gonna finish it up like this. What's the story of the hat?
I got the hat as a gift from a good friend named David Elam. Shout out to David Elam.
Shout out, David.
He's awesome. I just thought it was so cool. I saw him wearing it, and I'm like, oh, I need that hat. Where do I get that hat? He bought one for me and shipped it to me. And it means a lot to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a great conversation starter, although I do get some nasty looks from time to time when I go out. But
Haters gonna hate, you know.
essentially, this hat, what it means is that little rocks kill big giants. That's what it means. Little adjustments in your thinking can change everything. Like sometimes a tiny thing does a huge thing. And this reminds me of that. You know, sometimes we try to overhaul everything. We try to change 15 things at the one time. There could be one little adjustment that you need to make that doubles your personal income or 10x's your business. It's really true. But this reminds me to think of it like that, because it's not just about working harder. It's about using leverage. You know, David killed Goliath, which is what this hat's about. David and Goliath, story from the Bible. Okay, I know the author personally. Great guy, bestseller. Anyway, so he kills Goliath with a rock, right? It wasn't really just the rock that killed Goliath. It was David's certainty and his conviction and his belief. Because he was a teenager, and he walks into a battlefield with a sling and a rock. He actually got 5 rocks, by the way, because he killed Goliath and his brothers. In the Masoretic text, it estimates that Goliath was 9 foot 9 inches tall. But we don't know. People debate that. That's not the point. The point is that a bunch of grown men wouldn't do it. David did it because he had certainty. He was fully persuaded that he was going to walk away victorious. And business owners are not fully persuaded that they're doing the right thing, that they're serving the right people, that they actually have a purpose. We feel like we're in survival mode and we're never in thrival mode. And when you feel like that, it's really hard to do big things. So think about that. Think about why God made you. What's your mission and your mandate and your destiny? Because I promise you, you have one. And whether it's your current business or not, what's the little rock you can throw to knock down the big giant? Because I promise you there is one. And, you know, it's good to just start thinking like this. Poor people don't listen to things like this. If someone actually made it this far in the episode, they're already like part of that top 2%, which is pretty cool. Shout out to you. You got to change your thinking if you want to change your life. And hopefully we've contributed in a positive way to that.
And the shirt, do hard things.
Do hard things is an epic motivational thing, but what it does not mean is become a hardologist. Some people like beat their head against the wall for 15 years and think they're doing hard things. No, that's just called stupid. We don't be stupid, okay? You see a fly banging against a window trying to escape, but the door is open, like right over there. That fly is not doing hard things. That fly is killing itself, okay? There's a difference. But doing hard things means if there's something you know you should be doing, but you're just not because of fear, because of FOPO, fear, overwhelm, procrastination, overthinking. If you're paralyzed on your next step and you know what it is, you look at my good eye, you know what it is, do that thing. Because everything you want is just on the other side of hard things. You know, and you know, there's peaks and valleys and all the things, but doing hard things is so good because it increases your resilience, it increases your grit, it increases your resiliency, your confidence, things start to compound, it starts to create momentum. Everything will change, but people, they don't do hard things. They stay in the comfort zone. You got to jump off the cliff to build the plane on the way down. It's got to happen or nothing's going to change.
Well, that's good. Is it okay if I make an invitation? Well,
Sure.
This is my podcast. It's just your house.
Yeah, free reign.
My podcast in your house. So I'd like to invite you to do not a hard thing, actually an easy thing, but could be life-changing. Okay. If you're hearing this and you're like, man, I need to niche down. I need affluent clients. I want to fill my sling with rocks that can take down giants. I invite you to join the Affluent Leads Challenge. If you go to affluentleadschallenge.com, what we're going to do in this 3-day challenge, and by 3-day, it's 3 sessions. You can finish all the content in 2.5, 3 hours. So super quick, right? You could do it in an evening. You can do it on a weekend. But in this 3-session challenge, I'm going to teach you how to niche down and do it simply and easily by simply just reading out a questionnaire. You open up the questionnaire, You're going to read it into this screen recording software I'm going to teach you how to use. You're going to take that questionnaire, you're going to go over to ChatGPT, and you're going to cut and paste. So if you have 3 hours and you can cut and paste, you can niche down your business to an affluent clientele desperate to have what you have.
Unless they hate money. If people hate money, they should not join the challenge, right?
If you hate money, absolutely do not go to the challenge.
But if you want more money, they should go to the challenge?
Yes. Get out a pencil and paper. And if you want money, go to affluentleadschallenge.com. Okay. Normally the challenge is $27 because you get the recordings, right? Yeah. But I'm going crazy, Josh.
Just calm down, Caleb. Don't go.
Challenge is free. I'm saying it right now.
Are you kidding me?
It is absolutely free. I have paid an AI consultant thousands of dollars to help me develop these ChatGPT prompts. If you don't know what a ChatGPT prompt is, YouTube it. You can learn all about it.
Well, I think, can I try to sell this for you?
Please do.
We did not discuss this ahead of time.
No, pitch away.
Well, before recording this, you were walking me through your leads challenge and some of the ways that you're using prompt engineering to use ChatGPT at like level 26. Mm-hmm. What people don't understand when they hear ChatGPT, it's a commodity. You can go buy it for like $2, right? You can go use it. That's not where the value is. It's in the prompt engineering stuff that Caleb's already created, so that specifically for appointment setting based service businesses like this, it basically pulls out all the psychographic and demographic gold nugget stuff out of it. It was pretty wild when you're explaining that. So I just want to articulate the true value of it. And, if you don't want more leads, that just means, you're independently wealthy or you hate money. That's the only thing it means, right? Because the stuff that you do works. I've known you for over a year, and it works irrefutably. And I think making it free is risky in a way, because the purpose of even people paying for a challenge is just like that commitment on themselves to even show up. But the idea that someone could be 2.5 hours away from having all the messaging figured out specifically to dog whistle high ticket clients is pretty wild, especially if it's free. It'll be interesting to see if it's so low cost that they don't show up, because the actual value of just doing that is really big. You could charge $1,000 just to get the messaging to people, and they should thank you for it, because they can use it forever in all of their messaging and their hooks and their email sequences and their headlines and elevator speeches and networking and live events. It helps you get more clear on who you're talking to and how you're talking to them. It's like a cheat code. So I think you're nuts.
I am nuts. Thank you. I know it works, but I realize that maybe you just don't believe me. And there's a lot of Brocks on the internet, slinging their wares. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to give this to you for free. I've invested significant time and money and energy to craft these prompts and this process to produce a predictable result. Can I tell you a quick story about this? Mm-hmm. Using this prompt layout, I was on a client call. The client, no offense to my clients, some of you clients talk a little bit too much. They were going on and on and on and on. I was using these prompts as I was smiling, listening, cutting and pasting in ChatGPT. I wrote an ebook in the span of that 1 hour call. I was probably done with the ebook in about 30 minutes, using the process I teach in this challenge, using these prompts. This ebook has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of in-pipeline business for one of my solar clients. I wrote it half paying attention to it, because the prompts and the ChatGPT is so dialed in that it does the work for you. Mm-hmm. Now, I've used this same prompting resource to write financial services ebooks that are generating high net worth, affluent leads and appointments on a daily basis using the same process. I'm going to give this to you for free. Not only give you access to the challenge for free, you're going to get lifetime access to the recordings for life.
It's insane.
It's insane. You're going to get the worksheet. You're going to get all of it. But you need to commit to actually doing it.
I feel like you should charge them if they don't show up. I don't know how you can do that in your funnel.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. All right.
Like if they don't show up, charge them $500.
Here's an evergreen thing. I'm going to give you 3 days access to this for free. Okay. If you want to just test it out free, you don't want to bust out your credit card, I get it. Okay. So you're going to have 72 hours access to the content. You're going to lose access after that. If you want
That's fair.
If you want lifetime access, it's $27. Okay. So I don't know, other than coming to your house and physically manipulating your fingers for you on the keyboard, I'm not going to do that.
Well, some people want to be spoon-fed grapes like an Egyptian prince, you know.
Which
or
sounds
hand-fed.
wonderful.
I guess not spoon-fed. Just another grape, sir. Another. Well, I don't know why I have an English accent when I talk about Egyptian prince, but
I don't think people have a dialed-in Egyptian accent. That's really what it boils
no
down
one's
to.
come in to save your day. Truly, messaging going upstream with your clients is a logical, profitable choice to make, and it's way easier if you listen to what he says, because that's what you do. That's what you do for people. Is that you're that thing guy? So, I think it's a no-brainer, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So thanks, Josh. Tell us a little bit about WarPlan. If someone wants to work with you, learn more about WarPlan AI, please.
Sure. We help family entrepreneurs make a lot more money by using their brain instead of their back. And we do it a variety of different ways, through sophomore transformational coaching, small group cohorts, all kinds of really fun things. You can learn about us at warplan.com. We also have different resources for entrepreneur families. Our heart is for married entrepreneurs with kids, because marriage is hard, parenting is hard, business is hard. You mix them together, it's like crazy loco, muy loco. So we have different challenges and different journals for kids and resources for entrepreneur spouses and all kinds of cool stuff, because we want to change entrepreneur families and help them become radically generous and engineer family culture. It changes the world. So warplan.com should get you all the info about us.
Okay. Thanks, Josh and the WarPlan team. Thanks for listening to the Unlimited Leads podcast. Click the link up and down, up below, subscribe, all that. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.